All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the October 24th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission. We'll call this meeting to order at 9:31 a.m. Rosalie, do attendance.
Commissioner Arnett. Commissioner Curley.
Here.
Commissioner Dan Zeisen.
Here.
Commissioner Lindahl. Commissioner Lawrence.
Here.
Commissioner Montoya. Commissioner Milhaven.
Here.
Commissioner Schlosser.
Here.
Vice Chair Lindblom.
Here.
Chairman Hernandez.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you, Rosalie. All right, moving on to announcements. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with the open meeting law, Arizona Revised Statutes 38-431. Agendas are available within 24 hours of each meeting in the Maricopa County Planning and Development Office and are also available on the Planning and Development website 1 week prior to hearing at www.maricopa.gov/planning. The staff reports prepared for each agenda item shall become a part of the permanent record for each case. With respect to hearing process, cases will be considered in the order they appear on the agenda unless otherwise agreed to by the commission. For each case, the applicant will be given a set amount of time to present. Anyone wishing to speak on a particular case shall fill out a speaker's card for in-person attendance or raise your hand with GoToWebinar. The amount of time allowed for speaking shall be at the discretion of the commission chair. Staff will provide the chairman with the names of persons who have registered and noted desired to comment and those registered participants who have raised their hand. The chairman will call on each named participant one at a time. The chairman will conduct the hybrid in-person and virtual public hearing according to the bylaws and according to the rules established by the chairman regarding public comment. Votes will be done by roll call vote only. The chairman will verbally identify the specific members responsible for all motions and seconds. All right, see minutes. The minutes from the September 26th hearing were distributed to the commission. Are there any comments from the commissioners? All right, if there are no comments, then we'll consider those minutes approved. Moving on, Darren, to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, 3 items remain on consent, and they are MCP 240004, known as Justice Brothers Ranch Desert Farm Lights in District 4. It's a military compatibility permit for an annual seasonal outdoor festival, the Rural 43 MAAMF zoning district on 60 acres, the southeast corner of 151st Avenue in Peoria in the Glendale area. There's no known opposition. Recommendation in paragraph 15 is for approval subject to conditions A through I. The second item is Z 2024-027, known as TRB Tonopah in District 4. It's a special use permit for an outdoor shooting range in the Rural 43 zoning district on 10.5 acres at the southeast corner of Northern Avenue and 443rd Avenue in the Tonopah area. There's no known opposition. The recommendation in paragraph 23 is for approval subject to conditions A through L. And then item Z 2024-043 has been pulled from consent. The final consent item is Z 2024-064, known as PHO Ventata Ranch in District 5. It's a special use permit for a 70-foot high wireless communication facility south of the northeast corner of Broadway and Watson Road in the Buckeye area. Again, no opposition. The recommendations for approval, subject to conditions A through H, outlined in paragraph 10. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you, Darren. Is there any questions of staff from the commission? I don't believe we have anybody here in person that would like to speak. Is there anybody on the webinar that is registered to speak for the consent agenda? All right, hearing no public interest, we will close the public forum. Is there any discussion by the commission about the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, I'll be happy to entertain a motion.
I move to approve. This is Commissioner Lawrence.
All right, we have a motion to recommend approval of the consent agenda by Commissioner Lawrence. We have a second.
Second.
And we have a second by Commissioner Milhaven. Is there any comments regarding the motion? All right, Rosalie, we'll go for a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Curley.
Yes.
Commissioner Dan Zeisen.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Milhaven,
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Schlosser,
Yes.
Vice Chair Limblom,
Yes.
Chairman Hernandez.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion recommending approval of the consent agenda by a vote of 7-0.
Great. Thank you, Rosalie. All right, we'll move on to the regular agenda. I guess we'll start with case number 3, Z20240443, the Rittenhouse commercial.
Good morning, Commissioners. Agenda item number 3, KC 2024043 in Supervisor District 1 is a zone change request with overlay from Rule 43 to C2 CUPD to allow for the future development of a commercial use. The site is located at the southwest corner of Rittenhouse Road and 196th Street and is comprised of approximately 1.04 acres. Next slide, please. The site is within the town of Queen Creek's planning area and is designated neighborhood, which it supports residential uses with a range of densities, as well as both light and general commercial uses. Next slide, please. The site is part of a 10-parcel county island and is surrounded by rural and urban residential uses and industrial uses to the north of Rittenhouse Road. The applicant has proposed a CUPD overlay in order to deviate the standards as shown on the next slide, in order to develop a commercial use with a maximum height of 30 feet instead of the required 40-foot height in the C2 zoning district in order to be more in line with similar surrounding land uses on Rittenhouse. A plan of development has not been included as part of this zone change, and without a plan of development, a specific commercial use cannot be determined, but a plan of development will be required to be processed prior to the development of the site. The applicant is also proposing the CUPD overlay to allow for the development of an illuminated billboard on the northeast portion of the site. Although a billboard would be an allowed use in the C2 zoning district for this site, the separation standards would not be met. The applicant is requesting to deviate the separation standards for a billboard to a rural residential use to 47 feet, where 150 feet is required for an illuminated billboard. Staff notes the proposed C2 CUPD zoning would facilitate some, but probably not all, of the uses desired by the town of Queen Creek. Staff has received opposition since the publishing of the staff report from the town of Queen Creek and from 4 adjacent neighbors. The town's concerns are listed in detail on the handout memo dated October 21st, 2024. Their main concern is a commercial use not being appropriate for the site due to access to the site from Rittenhouse Road. And they also state the billboard is not in compliance to the town's code or surrounding area within the town. Neighbors provided a petition opposing the rezone as they have concerns with the negative impacts a commercial use can have on their community. The town of Queen Creek does not allow billboards per their zoning ordinance, which can be a concern if the site annexes into the town. The billboard would not be in compliance, but the Maricopa County zoning ordinance does allow billboards in the C2 zoning district. Rittenhouse Road is a major arterial road that connects the south of Gilbert to downtown Queen Creek. Staff believes that annexation and development in Queen Creek would be the preferred alternative, especially to obtain services from the town that can support a commercial use. The applicant does not discuss any plans of annexation. Staff is supportive of the proposed zone change with overlay due to the general compatibility to a low-intensity commercial use that would have with the surrounding land use and future development of the area. Staff recommends the Commission to adopt motion to recommend approval. Staff offers conditions A through I outlined in the staff report, except for condition E and B as they were updated per the handout memos provided and dated October 21st and October 23rd. At this time, I'm open to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there any questions of staff from the commission? All right. Is the applicant here?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Gary Hayes, 2198 East Camelback, on behalf of the applicant. So I think I'll start off with, we were on consent. Staff is recommending approval based on their stipulations, which we're okay with. I'll talk a little bit more about those in detail. We have had a lot of discussions with the town since Friday of last week, and are still having discussions. Mr. Swanson, who is here today from the town, will share his concerns and I met with a council member yesterday, and Mr. Swanson and I are going to get together after this hearing to talk about some things that we could do that might mitigate some of their concerns. And it's actually a interesting time for me. I've worked with Mr. Swanson for 20 years. It's the first time we haven't agreed. So give me time. I'll work on him. See if I can get him there. He's a guy I've spent a lot of time with over the years. Let's quickly go through his presentation because I agree with staff and appreciate all their hard work on this one. But I think it's important. So this is a larger aerial view. Can't actually see Canyon State, but it's in the very bottom right hand of your screen there. You'll see where our parcel is highlighted. We have a railroad track, a major arterial. Across the street is the major industrial for the town of Queen Creek. Next slide, please, Ms. Applegate. So we're going to talk about this a little bit. You're going to hear Mr. Swanson say a couple of things. That he's going to talk about access, he's going to talk about it should stay commercial, and he's going to talk about billboards unallowed in Queen Creek. So I wanted to talk to you about the overarching area. Now let's talk about this specific parcel. It's kind of hard to tell, but you see that long black line? It's a shadow going across the parcel. That is a 135-foot tall, double 230 kV line pole in the middle of this parcel. Not on the side, it's in the middle of the parcel. If you also look on the right side of the parcel, you'll see a driveway and a curb cut to Rittenhouse. Everybody in this county island on the south of this project accesses their parcel through this parcel. There's no other access for those properties other than through this. Next slide, Ms. Applegate. Paolo talked about this. This is the zoning map and the general plan map. It does allow light commercial in town of Queen Creek. Next slide, please. Okay, this is actually going to help. You see all those parcels on the south of this parcel? Every one of those parcels there get their access through this piece. This piece is no longer residential. It can't be residential. It's on a major arterial with access from the Rittenhouse already in place. There's actually a stop sign there. I drove by there before I went by with the council member. It's on my phone. I can't show it to you, but there's 196th Street Rittenhouse street sign with a stop sign right there. So there is currently access there today. Next slide, please, Ms. Applegate. We did have neighborhood outreach. We had a neighborhood meeting. Nobody attended. Sign was posted July 1st. So we did do the requirement. We had our neighborhood meeting. We didn't have any attendance. I did speak to Mr. Swanson 2 months ago, and I knew there was going to be some concerns from them. So we have started working through those now. Next slide, please, Ms. Applegate. I wanted to talk a little bit about the STIPs. We're fine with all the STIPs, as you can imagine. We're on consent. One of the STIPs says if we do something that requires services, i.e. water or sewer, staff requires us to have a pre-annexation development with the town of Queen Creek. So, or we can get a will serve letter from the town of Queen Creek, which means Queen Creek's going to be okay with it. So what we're doing today is getting this zoned from a parcel that is unusable for what it is today. It's not residential. Once all this stuff started happening, you can no longer have it be residential. And when there's going to be more intense commercial uses, then we are required by what you're voting on today to work with the town to make sure that all works. So I feel like we have addressed a lot of the concerns. I think Paolo mentioned we went to 30 feet for a height, 40 is a use by right. But the town of Queen Creek has 30-foot height in their residential zoning district. We didn't want to be 10 feet above it. So we agreed to come down to 30 feet. One thing that we haven't talked about yet today is it's going to be lit, but we will agree to turn it off at 11 p.m., which is the same as what the digital boards. Right now, a static board in Maricopa County is lit from dusk to dawn. We are willing to help some of the concerns, agree to turn it off at 11 p.m. That's really all I have. If you have any questions, I'm available. And I'll reserve some time to speak after Mr. Swanson.
Great. Is there any questions from the commission for the applicant? The only question I had is there any opportunity for this thing to go digital down the road?
Mr. Chairman, that's a great question. No, because we're nowhere near a freeway.
Okay.
You have to be within 300 feet of a freeway in order to be digital based on the county zoning ordinance.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, anybody else have any questions for the applicant? All right, great. We will proceed with in-person speakers, then allow those registered online to speak. After public comment, we'll allow time for rebuttal by the applicants. And looks like we have one person registered to speak here, Mr. Eric Swanson. Thank you for coming down. If you please state your name for the record.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Name is Eric Swanson. I am the planning manager for the town of Queen Creek, here on behalf of the town of Queen Creek. I think first and foremost, it's nice to see another Eric spell his name right, so I appreciate that. If I could just jump into my presentation, I do apologize for the late letter that came out to the commission as well as staff at the close of last week. As Gary mentioned, there was some delays in time and responses, and we weren't made aware of this application proceeding forward until the close of last week. I've since spoken with Darren, and I think we've got everything worked out. But again, I apologize for that late notice. So there are a couple items that I want to address and talk about in specifics to this particular request. In reading through the staff report, which I think was well written, there's a couple of items that are addressed in there and mentioned. And one in particular is the general plan. As the commission is well aware, with general plans and comprehensive plans, they are a broad brush approach to development for whatever that community is that that plan applies to. In the town of Queen Creek's instance, the general plan designates the site as neighborhood, which does allow for a variety of residential uses, and it does allow consideration for commercial uses. But there are some specific requirements and some parameters to what constitutes an allowed use in those commercial and where those can locate. Those are primarily the location of the commercial site and then the surrounding context. With Queen Creek's growth model right now, we're really filling in kind of our arterial intersections, and that's really been our growth model for commercial development. And so in this particular case for commercial development, we would look for that to locate at arterial intersections. Unfortunately, this location is not at the intersection of two arterials, and in fact is about a quarter to a half mile off of the arterial intersection. It's also important to note that the closest intersection to the northwest of here, which is Rittenhouse and Sossaman, the northeast corner went through a rezoning change from commercial to residential because commercial, they couldn't get anybody to come develop that property. And so commercial in this particular area, we have deemed, the town has deemed that it's really not viable. So that's the first component to it. The second one is the context of what that commercial site might be and what is around it. In this particular case, the request and one of the town's concerns is that you have 1 acre requesting to rezone from RU43, the rural category, with surrounding RU43 parcels being requested to rezone to commercial. And so from the town's perspective, this is a spot zoning, more or less granting a better development approval for one particular parcel that then does impact the surrounding community. And so for that reason, the town of Queen Creek opposes the request and then would also ask that the Planning Commission recommend denial of the request. The second component to the stated opposition is that of the billboard. As Mr. Hayes mentioned, there are some things in the town that they've tried to address with the height. But in 2019, the town updated their sign code and expressly prohibited, among other things, the allowance for billboard signs. And so the only other known billboard sign within the municipal planning area of the town is also a county island. It is at the very southern end of town off of Power Road, south of Riggs Road, and part of a much larger county island. I want to say it's somewhere between 4 to 6 square miles of a county island. And so in that case, we've kind of turned a blind eye to it. I don't know, unfortunately, the history of that one, so I can't say how involved we were. But this particular location is a completely different scenario in that Rittenhouse Road is one of the major entryways into the town. And the town is really focused on trying to encourage proper development and create an aesthetically pleasing approach into the town. Unfortunately, in this particular case, we believe that this diminishes that hard work that the town has done. And so for that reason, we are opposed to the request, and we request that the Planning Commission motion to deny the billboard. I will continue to work with Mr. Hayes, as he mentioned, in his presentation. So I'm happy to have those conversations. And as he mentioned, we've worked together for a very long time, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. So we will do that. There are a couple other items, if I have time. If not, that's fine, that I just wanted to mention about the public participation, and then also some of the commercial development constraints. So if you'll allow me another minute or two, I'll try to jump through those quickly. Again, I apologize, my opposition letter came a little bit late, and I found out that I believe the residents surrounding the area also recently submitted their opposition. And I think unfortunately the concern is, and it obviously follows the proper protocol for notification, but the 300-foot boundary really only impacts the two adjacent residents. And so you don't get a whole feel for the surrounding area, but it is the surrounding area, particularly the properties in Queen Creek to the west and south, that really will get the impact of this billboard, because they will see it night and day in their side yards, in their backyards. And so nobody in that area was aware of it. And like I mentioned, we weren't fully aware of it until last Thursday. And so there's that concern. And the way that I look at it is, those folks that are immediately adjacent to it, if they had come out and said, hey, we support this, that would be great. I mean, it might change my argument a little bit, but I'm unaware of any support for the request, particularly from those property owners in immediate adjacency that are in support of it. And then lastly, as we work through the process, assuming it gets approved and goes to the Board of Supervisors and gets approved, from a staff standpoint or a Queen Creek standpoint, there's some serious concerns with the commercial developability of the site. As Mr. Hayes mentioned, the access on the east side, we have to explore that easement to see if that is only for residential or if that would allow for commercial type development. The easement itself is only 24 feet wide, and so that creates some potential concerns from a roadway standpoint and roadway improvements. Then there's also the issues of kind of curb cuts, geometry, and then extending utilities that aren't anywhere really near the subject site. So I think with those items, there's an issue with ultimate developability of a commercial project. And unfortunately, from the town's perspective, what this appears to be is, let's rezone it to commercial so we can get the billboard on there and it won't ever develop as commercial. And so those are my comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And like I mentioned, I'll continue to speak with Gary about this after the fact. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Eric. Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Schlosser?
Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Litt.
Go ahead. Vice Chair Lindblom, do you have some comments?
I did. First, I wanted to thank Mr. Swanson for coming down. It carries a lot of weight. It's rare for the municipalities to actually come down or call in, and so appreciate your thoughts and you coming in. My question is, and I heard the applicant state that this is a challenging site for residential, and I tend to agree, and I'd just like to get your thoughts on, do you actually think this can be residential? Because it feels like commercial is more with the issues of proximity to the road and others. It just, I tend to lean towards a land use that would be an exception. So just want you to speak to that a little.
Certainly, Chairman and Commissioner Lindblom, I appreciate the recognition of us coming down here. Just to briefly touch on that, I'd like to say that the town has a good relationship with the county, particularly with Mr. Gerard and Mr. Ellsworth. And anytime we've had concerns, we've expressed those, and it's very few and far between. And so I do appreciate that relationship. To address your specific concern about residential developability, I think if you're looking at the aerial, I'm assuming you can see it on your screen. The property to the south, I'll call it the development to the south, is a single family residential neighborhood. And then you can see one at the northeast corner of the site. The northeast corner of the picture, although it's a little bit different, I think it applies. I believe a residential development could occur on this site because you see residential developments all along arterials that more or less develop their back wall adjacent to those arterials. In this particular photo, you see that quite clearly with a development to the southeast. You only see a little bit of portion of it, albeit. And then even at the northwest, you just see a sliver of it on the left side of your screen. That development also has a wall adjacent to the arterial. And then if you jump to the northeast portion of your screen, It's a collector road on that side, but again, you have residential lots backing up that have a screen wall. And so in this case, I don't know if it would fully develop as 1 acre lots, as a little enclave. I certainly think that's a possibility, but I could also see this being acquired or all those property owners going into an agreement together, selling it to a developer, and you could have an enclave of various parcel sizes. I think quite honestly, with all the conversations going on with the affordability of housing, middle housing, and whatever kind of term you want to throw at it, I think this particular site and those surrounding parcels present themselves as an opportunity to do that. And then I think one of the things about access and the argument by Mr. Hayes about, all the residents use this street and therefore that property is no longer viable as residential. I've got about 15 houses one way on my street and another 6 houses the other way on my street. And those cars drive by my house all day long. That does not make my property no more viable for residential than this particular one. And so I just want to point that out that, in closing again, I certainly view this as an opportunity to provide residential development. Does it look like this and does it stay like that as 1 acre lots? Maybe, maybe not though. So I hope that answers your question, Vice Chairman, and I'm happy to try to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Schlosser.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vice Chair Lindblom and I seem to always think a lot and sort of barking up the same tree. But first of all, we've experienced this multiple times in the last 4 or 5 years that I've served on this commission, where at the last minute, the adjacent municipality came in opposition or expressed their opposition, then they didn't show up. So I wanted to first thank you for taking the time to show up and express your thoughts, because to my knowledge, I think that's the only time that this has ever happened. With respect to what Commissioner Lindblom, Vice Chair Lindblom, was talking about, my question was headed sort of in the same direction. With these high tension power lines and the odd shape of this parcel, my question to you was going to be, with the exception of this proposed use, what other potential uses? I know you said that residential uses, or if you assembled other parcels, but it's been my experience that if you probably went and approached these other homeowners, the chances of assembling multiple parcels together to create a new subdivision are probably not very high. So I guess my question is, what other alternative uses, with the exception of what's being proposed here, could you envision here with the challenges that encompass this parcel?
Chairman, Commissioner Schlosser, I do want to point out that although at this point in time, Mr. Hayes and I are kind of at odds against each other, Mr. Hayes was kind enough to help me get down here from a direction standpoint. And hey, you need to leave the office probably right around now so you make it there on time, because as you mentioned, we really don't come down to these types of hearings, and we try to express any concerns that we have with staff early on. And so again, I apologize for that late notice. I think in this particular case, there are some potential options outside of being a residential subdivision. Within the town of Queen Creek, we have home-based business operations. Granted, this site does not have a home on it. I recognize that. That's always an option if somebody were to develop it and continue to use it as residential. The other one is that we have allowances for areas that have developed over time that have residential lots in them. Our particular example is Ocotillo Road, close to the downtown. If you ever come out Queen Creek Way, our busiest street is Ellsworth Loop. That's kind of like our freeway. And then Ocotillo is one of our major arterials. In that instance, we have a number of homes, there's actually 11, that face directly onto Ocotillo, and they get a ton of traffic. And so one of the things that we've done in the town is to allow those to convert to commercial type uses, would be very limited in commercial uses. And so the idea is you could have offices there, you could potentially do a daycare or school, you could do restaurants that are low impact, All of those require us to look at some of the development standards like parking and things like that. But the idea is to keep that residential nature. The benefit of that is those types of uses don't generate the high traffic that a typical commercial center will do. It also continues that kind of residential feel that you'd see surrounding this development. And so the example of Ocotillo Road, those 11 lots that front Ocotillo, directly behind them is a developed, well-established neighborhood. We've never, at least I'm unaware of it, heard any complaints about them saying, hey, this commercial use is going crazy. I will admit it's not fully developed and it hasn't been totally turned over to commercial development. So we may hear that in the future, but that's a situation where you take old residential lots that don't necessarily meet the criteria of a commercial development, don't necessarily fit long-term as residential because of the growth around them, and they become a use that is successful and works. There's other examples in other municipalities. My prior life, I was in Chandler. We had a similar situation, but I won't go too far down that road unless you want me to keep talking. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Is there
Chairman,
any
I
other?
have one more question.
Yes, Vice Chair Limbaugh.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, Mr. Swanson, this I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this properly, but for me, this is this proposal outside of the billboard. I don't know that we would be you would have come down for that, whether you would or not. That doesn't matter to me at this point. But the the stipulations that allow for annexation or will serve down the road give some protection to the town. I know the billboard is what creates a cloudy issue here on that. Like just creating that stipulation, we throw a billboard on the side, it makes it a little hard. You know, you start to pin down the use a little bit more. But so for me, I'm looking at this more on the billboard perspective, and I don't like to compare Rittenhouse to the Grand Avenue of the West Side, but in a lot of ways, like I grew up a half mile from Rittenhouse and have seen it evolve over the years, and thankfully it's gotten a little better than the Grand Avenue of the West Side. So, but it still is a street that highly traveled, a little bit more not quite developed because of the issues on both sides of the street. But so for me, I'm just being honest. I'm kind of leaning towards. I believe the land use the applicant's seeking for is reasonable and one that we should consider. But you know, is the billboard really what's the huge concern right now?
Chairman, Vice Chairman, I appreciate the questions and comments. I think it's twofold. I think the billboard is certainly an issue because there aren't any others in town outside of the one that I mentioned before that has been up, my understanding is, for a number of decades. And then the fact that the town prohibits billboards throughout the town. So there isn't even provisions, as you might be aware, with the extension of the 24 for billboards to locate along the 24. I mean, we would have to take some sort of special action that we haven't even considered to even consider billboards out there. And so I would say on a whole, we are concerned with the billboards simply because we don't allow them. And then if annexation is pursued in the future, not to sound crass, but it's one of those things that we're then forced to swallow that tough pill and just, you know, deal with having this billboard, even though we didn't want it, which is one of the reasons why I'm down here expressing our opposition. So I think we do have the issue with the billboard. We do also have the issue with the rezoning because it's the rezoning to commercial uses that prompts the ability for them to locate a billboard. I'm unaware, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you can locate a billboard on the underlying zoning that the property currently enjoys, which I think is RU43. And so I really think that it's the rezoning that is prompting the desire for the billboard, or vice versa, how you want to categorize it. So it's kind of a both and concerns.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, and thank you to the chair for allowing us to ask this many questions. But when the municipality shows up and it's in our district, we want to get it right. So thank you to everybody for the time.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Lindblom. Is there any other questions from the commission? All right, thank you, Mr. Swanson, for coming down.
Thank you,
I
Chairman.
appreciate it. Okay, is there anybody on the webinar that has their hand raised or registered to speak? Okay, we don't have anybody. So with that, we'll give the applicant a few moments for rebuttal.
I'll make it very quick, Mr. Chairman, and next time I won't be so helpful with Mr. Swanson getting him down here because he took it really easy on me today. Eric and I have worked together, so we will work together after this with no problems. A couple of things he said I think is important to note. I did hear both Commissioner Schlosser's and Vice Chair Lindblom's questions, so I'll try and focus on that. One thing I didn't talk about earlier is, do you see that triangle-shaped parcel just to the southeast of our parcel? It's 4.5 acres. That's owned by SRP. SRP doesn't build houses. I don't know what SRP is going to put there, but I have some guesses. And a light commercial use buffering to other residential makes a lot of sense in this instance. I think when Commissioner Schlosser asked Mr. Swanson what else could be there, Mr. Swanson's responses were commercial uses, daycare, restaurant. I agree. I agree with that. So I think the use is appropriate. I think Vice Chair Lindblom hit it on the head. It's a billboard. Billboards are allowed here. They're not allowed in their jurisdiction, but we're here where they are allowed by right in C2. And I think what we have done and will continue to do is try to mitigate those concerns. We've lowered the height. We've agreed to turn the lights off. I have a couple more creative ideas that Mr. Swanson and I will talk about after this. Do I think I'm going to make him happy? I don't know. Am I going to try? Yes, I will. So I think what you have in front of you today, in accordance with the staff recommendation, is an appropriate use, and the STIPs are appropriate as well. And again, I'm available if you have any questions.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Is there any additional comments for the applicant from the commission? All right, hearing none, we will close the public forum. And I'm open to discussion from the commission regarding this. Vice Chair Lindblom, you have any, would you like to provide us your thoughts on this case?
Sure. If you ask, I will talk. Yeah, I really try to just look at land use and all these and try to make the right play and call and take into fact, what the town, these, county islands, we try to be really respectful of the town and what their vision is as well. I've approved, I think, 2 billboards in town since being on this commission. The last one I was very vocal about. I didn't like often where they were combined with like a special use permit or something of a family business, and that, I wanted them to stand on their own. This I feel is different. There's not some tear jerking family that's going to lose their business if we don't approve the billboard or strip it. And so right now I'm just looking strictly at on land use. I think I'm okay with it, especially under the stipulation that requires annexation or will serve. I think it gives the town some protections down the road, and I lean towards the land use could go either way, residential or like a form of light commercial. So I'm okay on the land use side, and then we get to the billboard side. If there was a place in Queen Creek I would ever say I would approve it, it would be along Rittenhouse Road in spots. Probably not. I can't think of any other spot. It's potentially down Ellsworth where there already are some, but and I think that's even City of Mesa, but I'm not totally sure. But I tend to be okay with this case and the way that it's being proposed, and I do believe the town and the applicant can work through some more stuff down the road in between now and when it goes to the supervisors. So that's just my thoughts.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair Lindblom. Commissioner Schlosser?
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but just real quick, and I purposely didn't ask this question of the applicant or Mr. Swanson, but I know that there was opposition in the immediate area with these other homeowners. And I guess and the reason I didn't ask the question is nobody has a crystal ball, but if the applicant was here proposing for a commercial use or some other use like that as opposed to a billboard, I guess the crystal ball question is, my assumption would be they would be opposed to a commercial use as well. So I don't know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other, I guess, with that. So I think it's appropriate land use here as well.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Schlosser, is there anybody else from the commission who has comments? Okay, I'll give my 2 cents. I think that a commercial zoning is probably appropriate for this. I would like to echo what Mr. Hayes said, that the land to the southeast and to the northwest are both owned by SRP, and I think you're right, they're not going to build residential houses there. I don't see much of a residential use for this lot, but the billboard is a little bit concerning to me just because it is in a residential area, but I think I support the use of this applicant. So is there any other comments from the commission? If not, be entertaining a motion. Yes, Commissioner Milhaven.
So my main concern is the billboard. My understanding is that the conditions for the billboard are less conservative than it. I mean, I'm sure Mr. Swanson, I thought he said that the town would not allow a billboard at all, but I thought I read that the billboard requirements would be further from homes than is what's stipulated here. Does that make any sense?
Mr.
This is more
Chairman,
generous than what the town would require for a billboard.
Commissioner, that is correct. The town prohibits billboards in full. This is a request to deviate the base standards to allow for an illuminated billboard to be closer to rural and or residential zoning than normally permitted under the ordinance.
Under the county's ordinances. Okay, I just really have issues with the billboard. I don't see any issues with the use, but I do take issue with the billboard and the fact that the town takes issue with it. Thank you.
So the according to county stipulations, just to clarify for Mrs. Milhaven, it's 150 feet, correct? And they're requesting to be 47 feet.
That is my understanding, 47 feet from the east for an illuminated billboard.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any other questions or comments from the commission? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I have a quick question. This is Commissioner Lawrence. I apologize.
Yes, Commissioner Lawrence.
I have a question for Mr. Hayes. Have you spoken to SRP at all as to find out what their intent is with their land?
Through the chair, I actually made some calls, but haven't gotten responses back. I did find out it's 135-foot tall pole. I found that much out. And there's 230 kVs with 169 kV on it as well. But I have not gotten a response back from what the intent is for the land, but I did ask.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Lawrence. Anybody else from the commission? All right, I'll entertain a motion if anyone is ready and willing.
This Vice Chair Lindblom, I'll make a motion to approve this case with the stipulations changed.
Thank you. We have a recommendation for approval by Vice Chair Lindblom for Z20244043 as presented by staff. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Lawrence.
Commissioner Curley, I second.
All right, I think I have a second by Commissioner Curley. Are there any comments of the motion? All right, hearing none, go roll call vote, please. Rosalie?
Commissioner Curley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dan Zeisen, Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Milhaven,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlosser,
Yes.
Vice Chair Limblom,
Yes.
Chairman Hernandez.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion recommending approval by a vote of 7-0.
Great. Thank you, Rosalie. All right, moving on. We got agenda item number 5, case MCP 2023010. Joel, whenever you're ready.
Chairman Hernandez, members of the commission, agenda item 5 is for case MCP 2023-010, which is a military compatibility permit request for the Krikorian warehouse facility located just north of Buckeye at Perryville and Thomas Roads in District 4. Next slide. The site is within the 65 LDN area just east of an existing residential subdivision outside of the noise contours. This limits site development to only what is approvable by Luke Air Force Base. They did approve this warehouse use back in 2016. The existing warehouse was built without the benefit of a construction permit after the property was acquired by the owners in 2021. They've been operating under violation since 2022 and began the process of entitling the site in 2023. Next slide. The owners are looking to expand this operation once approved to include additional warehousing capabilities in addition to permitting the existing structure. Per the handout memo provided on Tuesday, if approved, there will likely be changes to the site plan shown, as there has been a change in the ultimate right-of-way of Perryville Road that will allow the owners to keep an additional 10 feet of their property to the east rather than having to dedicate it to McDOT. Staff has modified the first condition to allow the applicant extra time to prepare a site plan with that in mind. Staff is recommending the commission adopt a motion recommending the board of supervisors approve this case as per the staff report and handout memo conditions. The site use is consistent with both the White Tank Grand Avenue area plan and Buckeye 2040 plan for parcels within the Luke Air Force Base noise contours. The use does appear to be the highest and best use available to this property, considering its location and surrounding parcels. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I could just make one quick clarifying statement.
Yes.
Luke Air Force Base does not have carte blanche approval of use. They are required per our ordinance and through statute to make a land use consistency and compatibility determination. The county must concur before the county then proceeds with land use approvals.
Okay. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Joel. Appreciate that. Okay, is there any questions from the commission for staff? All right, is the applicant here? Would you guys like to make a presentation? Or are you just here for questions? Okay, if you please step up to the podium and state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Diana Krikorian, and I wanted to thank you guys for your time right now. This is the property on site on what we're trying to get rezoned and permitted. So we did place this storage building without a permit, and that's on, we should have investigated more. Originally, with our mindset, we were thinking this was going to be like the garage for the actual, the main building. So we received a violation notice at the end of 23 in December. And then in January is when we sought out to hire Taz in order to help us be in accordance with the county. So we're not trying to operate and move forward with anything on the property until we receive approval from you guys. Currently on the property, we only have trash service, the dumpster service that comes, and water. We do not have any electric, sewer, or anything like that. Inside the building is just what we're trying to operate is just a storage to have all of our things. My mom has had her business for over 20 years. This is a family business. These are just pictures of the property of just all of our things. So I've tried to maintain it in decent conditions, not have trash, just so it's not an eyesore. I know it's not perfect, but we are working like through the summer and 110 degrees. So we are needing some shade. So everything that's of the shade that we have is not permanent. We could just remove it. We've had, I guess, a neighbor complain to county in regards to our property. I feel that it's been a harassment. Because if you don't mind, I could read a letter that she sent to my parents.
Okay.
Says neighbor, enclosed with this is a picture of your property located in Litchfield Park. As you could see, it's in deplorable condition. Please show some pride in your property. We know you are running an illegal business in an unpermitted shed, but that should be noticeable by people driving down Perryville or property owners who must see this every day. This property is not located in a barrio, but is surrounded by million-dollar properties. Everyone that must come in some kind of contact with this property would appreciate your attention to cleaning up this mess. So we received this letter, and this is what the property looks like. We're just trying to earn an honest living with this small family business. There's not going to be high traffic going in and off the property. It's literally me and maybe 2 other people that work on this property day in, day out, making flower arrangements. I put pictures of, this is inside the building. So we do furniture pieces. We do a lot of cultural weddings. And these are just some of the supplies inside the building. And then I enclosed, this is my family. So my kids, my sister, my mom, dad, nephew, husband, my brother-in-law. This is who works here, on and off, but primarily me. These are our creations from that mess that maybe is an eyesore for other people. That this is what we create. We make brides' dreams come true with all the things that we do have. So we're not trying to interfere with any of the neighbors. We want to be in compliance, and we haven't moved forward with anything since the violation. We are just trying to comply with everything requested by you guys and do everything properly. And so I am here representing my parents and me, our family.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll proceed with in-person speakers and then allow those registered online to speak. After public comment, we'll allow time for rebuttal by the applicant. I don't believe we have anybody registered in person. Do we have anybody online? Hands raised? No. All right. Is there any questions of the applicant by the commission? All right, hearing none, then we will close the public forum. All right, so is there any discussion by the commission on this? Commissioner Schlosser?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, this, I guess, clarification or reaffirmation from staff, even though they didn't build this structure, this storage facility with their permit, they didn't follow the rules originally. That's what they're trying to do now. And the reason that they're here, based on my previous experience on this commission, is because of this complaint that the county received.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Schlosser, it is correct that this was generated due to a zoning code violation based on citizen complaint. They are located in an area they cannot have a new residential use on this property. It's prohibited in the military air base ancillary military facility overlay zoning district. And so, but in order to have any non-residential use, they got to go through that process I described earlier. And so that's what's going on. There's a bit of a conflict between in this immediate neighborhood at the northwest corner of Perryville and Thomas. There's a little triangle that's inside the overlay. And these lots share a rear wall, not this lot specifically, but many of the lots share a rear wall that is also the rear wall of single family lots outside the overlay. So there is a planned subdivision immediately adjacent to what is going to be non-residential uses. And that's where this family is at today. If they get this military compatibility permit, that's the first step, and then bringing the property in compliance. The next would be to get construction permits completed for what's out there.
I guess my only other statement is I live probably 2 or 3 miles to the west. I drive by this property all the time, and it's not an eyesore. Honestly, it's not. And then my last comment is, this is the F-35s. That's why you have to get this military compatibility permit. The F-35s that fly very low over this property is unbelievable. You can't even hear yourself think. It's the, what do they call it? The sound of freedom. Nobody.
Yes.
It honestly is. But to just even have a business here is an appropriate thing to have here. That's all I had.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Schlosser. I just have two things. If this is not allowed for residential, did the previous 5 or 6 houses that are there, were they in prior? No? Okay. Wayne Peck is saying we can't talk about that, so.
If I will just explain, because this is complicated. It's not allowed, but in order to do a residence, you would need to get Luke to say it's consistent and compatible, and they won't do that for houses. So it's allowed, but in effect, you're going to be blocked from doing it. And that's part of the conflict.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just to make it real easy, they are legal non-conforming. They were all permitted prior to current regulation.
Okay, that's basically what I was after. So, but anyways, same as Luke, I live very close to this. I do drive up Perryville quite often. It seems to me that there are other businesses that are operating out of their houses there. So with that, I think it's a good use, and I'm totally in favor of this. Is there any other questions or comments by the commission? All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Schlosser.
make a motion to approve case number MCP 2023-010 as presented.
All right, we have a motion to recommend approval of MCP 2023-010 by Commissioner Schlosser. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Milhaven. Are there any comments regarding the motion? All right, Rosalie, we'll take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Curley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dan Zeisen,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Milhaven,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlosser,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lindblom,
Yes, with this small comment that I wish the applicant the best.
Chairman Hernandez.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion recommending approval by a vote of 7-0.
Great. Thank you very much, Rosalie. All right, moving on. Agenda item number 6, case Z2024008. Martin, ready whenever you are.
Good morning, members of the commission. This is case Z2024008, MR Handy Trucking. It is a request for a zone change with overlay from rural 43 to IND2 IUPD. This request will accommodate an existing outdoor storage facility and a proposed billboard. Next slide, please. There are 2 portions of this site. There are two parcels of this site that make up this site. And this is kind of a unique property where there's a LDN 65 noise contour for the Air Force Base, splits this property and kind of draws a straight line on the eastern flank of this property. This portion of the site that's inside the sound contours are going to be subject to a future military compatibility permit. Now, they do have a UCCD, which is a use compatibility termination from the Air Force Base, who have deemed the outdoor storage and even the billboard, which is actually off-site, as compatible with the airbase. And then according to the applicant, this area is not suitable for residential development due to the proximity of the noise contours and the freeway. This site contains a residence where the property owner resides and is being used as outdoor storage yard for shipping containers, semi-trucks, and trailers. The owner plans to add a billboard along the site's northern boundary next to and orientated toward the freeway. The industrial rezoning will resolve a current zoning violation we have on the property, since the outdoor storage use is not permitted in the zoning district of Rural 43. Due to the unique configuration of the site and proximity to the existing residences in the freeway, the applicant is requesting to vary several IND2 development standards due to the uniqueness of the site. However, the city of Buckeye is opposed to this request and would prefer that a solid wall be placed along the freeway so that people driving down the freeway do not see the outdoor storage use on the property. Now, the applicant has argued that most of the traffic traveling along this section of the freeway is elevated above the site and will travel at a high rate of speed and would hardly notice the site. And therefore, having a screen wall along that freeway frontage is not practical, according to the applicant. Staff believe that both the city's and the applicant's concerns can be addressed by a compromise, including a condition of approval for a minimum of a 6-foot tall fence with screening materials such as plastic slats or mesh along the northern boundary of the site to screen the site from the industrial land use from the freeway. Staff are in support of this zone change request because it will be the first step in resolving a existing zoning violation. The zoning is appropriate since it is adjacent to a freeway and approximate to the LDN sound contours of the Air Force Base, and the proximity of the Air Force Base contours and freeways makes single-family residential land uses less optimal for this site. And the use of the site for limited industrial use, particularly outdoor storage with freeway-oriented billboard, is reasonable land use for this site and consistent with the area land use and development patterns that are taking place across the freeway and in this general area, with the tendency of going toward industrial or distribution centers and things like that. The industrial use of the site adjacent to large residential lots should also be screened. Staff feel that that should be made as a condition as well, to add the 6-foot chain link fence with the screening materials attached to it. And then the few visitors that are going to be visiting the sites with trucks and trailers are not expected to negatively affect the existing traffic patterns. And thus, traffic studies will be required during the administrative plan of development or construction permitting for the site to address any concerns. But pretty much at this site, businesses, there are going to be occasional trucks coming to the site, dropping off either a shipping container or storing their trailer on site or the semi truck on there. And they're expected to be very limited, and it would be a home-based business with just the only employee being the property owner himself. So staff recommends the commission to adopt a motion to the board to approve this case, subject to conditions A through L listed in the staff report. This concludes staff's presentations. Thank you, members of the commission.
Great. Thank you, Martin.
You're welcome.
Is there any questions of staff by the commission? All right. Is the applicant here? Would like to give a presentation?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Welcome, Ms. Millhaven. It's been a while. Bill Lally with Tiffany Bosco, representing the applicant today. We do have a presentation that really talks to sort of, I think, where we ended up, which was a compromise in terms of the screening. And I think it's probably worth maybe going through a couple of slides just to kind of give you a context of the area. And so if we can go to the next slide, and we'll probably jump through a few of these. This is probably important just to note. You see the big boxes. So this area is in transition. It is in the Buckeye planning area, but this area is in extreme transition. You see the large warehouse buildings literally hundreds of feet away from this project are all fairly new. And so this area, which once was a county island with single family residential in the far west valley, has now turned into future planning for Buckeye, but also very large planning for warehouses. If you could go to the next slide as well. You can see, and as staff indicated, it is a really odd shaped site. It's a typical 1 acre lot, and then they actually acquire the right of way, excess right of way along the freeway as well. And so, which makes the site a little bit of a unique problem. In the specifically when we were working with the town of Buckeye, the city of Buckeye, about a screen wall along there. It isn't necessarily a screen wall that would have been in front of the 150-foot northern boundary of the property. We're talking 600 plus feet that would have run along the entire strip of that little narrow. So the financial burden of and if you read their email, they were talking, upwards of a 10 to 12 foot tall cinder block wall or CMU block wall. We're talking, $50 to $60 to $70,000 to build that wall. Our rebuttal was this wall would be right up against the freeway, and the discrepancy or the view shed from folks who are on the elevated freeway, even a 10 or 12 foot wall was probably not going to shield. If you drive through the valley, you'll see sound walls along the freeway, and the sound walls are built on ADOT's property. They're built at grade with the freeway, and those walls are usually 18 to 20 foot tall, and that's to just separate residential uses normally along the freeway from freeway noise and odor and light. And so to try to add even a 12-foot cinder block wall or CMU block wall along that northern edge right up against the freeway honestly would not mitigate any screening. I think the compromise that we've come up with staff is meaningful. I think having some screening along there in the existing fences is going to probably have a better impact, probably for the neighbors next to them. I think is probably what's really the biggest impression. If you go to the next slide, what you'll see is, this county island is shrinking. Buckeye is actively annexing, and Goodyear as well, areas in the area. And I think that that's going to continue. I think this zoning case is one of probably many zoning cases that will come in that area as people see this as more industrial, commercially appropriate. As staff indicated, Luke Air Force Base noise contours prohibit, new residential uses. Those existing residential uses within the corridors are going to have trouble expanding as well. So you'll see commercial industrial start to creep towards this, and I think you'll start to see a redevelopment of this entire county island. You can go to the next slide. And really what this shows you is there are some dots across the street and down the freeway that indicate other either Buckeye and or unincorporated areas that have industrial commercial zoning with either similar to or less than screening, meaning similar. There are some fence screening along there, and then there are some properties that have similar zoning with zero screening. So I think what we've compromised with is probably an improvement to what's probably been happening in the area. You can go to the next couple slides as well, which kind of shows some of those properties that we're talking about. And I know commissioners who drive by this every day know what I'm talking about when you see some of those properties. And some of these are pretty recent. You see this building here permitted in Buckeye along the freeway without any screening at all. And so when we were trying to figure out what makes the most sense for a 1 acre mom and pop business and the financial implications of something that would cost roughly $100,000 to add, is it really a good bang for the buck? And so we looked around the area, we looked at other similar sites, we looked at what's been approved in Buckeye, and we thought, you know what, I think the screening fence with screen materials make a lot of sense. And so we agree wholeheartedly, I think, with staff's stipulations today. Really do want to appreciate staff. We worked through a number of versions of this application because the noise contours cut it right in the middle, because the uses kind of flirted between commercial and industrial. So I think we finally, after probably about 2 years, got this one right. So appreciate Mr. Chairman and commissioners. Again, the other slides were just other similar uses in the area.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lally. Is there any questions of the applicant from the commission? Commissioner Schlosser? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Why you're referring to me and the chairman about driving by this on a regular basis. These big bucks that the applicant pointed out, there's brokers advertisements or signs. They're not even occupied yet. So I guess my question is, it's the city of Buckeye that's asking for you to do the screening, because the big boxes are in city of Buckeye, correct?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Schlosser, yes. I mean, I think when you compare the fairness test, which is if a $100 million developer doesn't have to do a large screening wall, why does the mom and pop have to do it?
Yeah, because it's all empty bays there and nothing, you've driven by there, nothing there.
Nope.
I don't understand that one. But that's just coming from the city of Buckeye.
Correct. Yeah, and Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Schlosser, it is also important, and I know it's in the staff report. We did go door to door with some neighbors on our street. We did get letters of support from some of the neighbors. Not going to not mention, there is one neighbor down, 2 or 3 doors down who did vocalize opposition. If you looked at his property, he's got tons and tons and tons of stuff on his property that he's storing and selling. And so again, the nature of that street and that area is quasi-commercial industrial already. And so I think there's really going to be very little change to the site other than additional screening and then maybe another billboard.
You agree with the stipulations that is presented by staff? Okay. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Schlosser. Thank you, Mr. Talley. I don't think we have any other questions from the commission. Is there anybody registered online? Okay. At this time, we will close the public forum. I guess I'll give my 2 cents on this. I have 0 issues with this. It's very compatible with the rest of the area. Almost directly on the, what's that? Yeah, I think directly on the north side of the I-10 is a billboard there. So I fully support this case and happy to hear if anybody else has any comments. All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Schlosser.
make a motion to approve case number Z 2024-008 as presented by staff.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to recommend approval of case Z 2024-008 as presented by staff by Commissioner Schlosser, and we have a second by Commissioner Milhaven. Is there any comments regarding the motion? All right, Rosalie, we'll take a roll call vote.
Commissioner Curley,
Yes.
Commissioner Dan Zyson,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Milhaven,
Yes.
Commissioner Schlosser,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lindblom.
Yep.
Chairman Hernandez.
Yes.
Chairman, we have a motion recommending approval by a vote of 7-0.
Great, thank you, Rosalie. Darren, do we have any other matters?
Mr. Chairman, no. I will point out that, I'm sorry. We do have another matter, but before that, I would like to point out that your November 21st zipper, we may alter that to an actual hearing with cases to be heard due to the crush here at the end of the year. And if not, it may be canceled. We'll keep you posted.
Okay, great, thank you.
Turn it over to Adam.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. So one of the things we were really excited to announce, we've kind of hinted at it, but this is a more formal announcement under that we have under other matters today, is that we're starting our Framework 2040 Maricopa County Comprehensive Plan update process. And as a part of that, we so the comprehensive plan, it's going to guide development for policy, development and growth for policymakers for many years to come. It's required by state statute that we update it every decade, and that we're in the beginning stages of that process, looking to have it updated and approved by the Board of Supervisors by spring of 2026. And so what we wanted to do was just ask our commission, because we do have an advisory committee that advises on the development of the plan, to see if, Chairman, if there is anyone on the commission that would be interested in participating in that advisory committee. We do have a meeting today. We're not expecting, if there is interest for someone to change their schedule around for that, but we will have plenty of meetings over the next couple of years. And so we wanted to put that forward to the commission, see what they thought about it. And if there's any questions, please,
Okay, great. I don't have any questions. Are any questions from the commission? Okay, is there any other matters? All right, we'll adjourn the meeting at 10:46.